Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. With me in studio, Dr. MacDonald Obudho, Dr. Abraham Rugo, and Guyo Liban, who are with us in studio to discuss matters the economy following the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics 2024 Economic Survey report. Dr. Rugo, you had a point.
Yes. I wanted to talk about this formal employment and formal creation of jobs. The fact is that whereas the numbers look very nice that the economy has grown, I think when you look at the survey a bit more in detail and read it against other reports, one thing that is very clear, that our economy is being public sector driven. The growth is public sector driven. You look at the employment, the growth in wage in private sector is actually falling. In public sector, it's growing up. It's going up. And largely in public sector, the Teacher Service Commission is the leading. And you know the multiply effect of teachers. But that is something to be worried, because government does not necessarily exist to create employment. It creates employment, yes, and it's important, especially for critical services, healthcare, security, education, and the like. But sustainability in terms of incomes of the country is only driven by the private sector. And as we are saying, it's only within the private sector context, formal one, that you are able to collect taxes. So what you're seeing in this report is that private sector wages are actually going down, real income. And I think there was an article, must have been on Monday this week, I think in the Business Daily, that real wages are actually going down, but they're going down fastest in the private sector. And remember the point I made earlier, our indicator of whether incomes are improving or not is income tax, because that tells you both corporate tax and pay as you earn, you know, personal income tax. And therefore, that is something to be concerned about. So that then of these 70,000 jobs, majority of them are actually in public sector. They are not necessarily, it's not necessarily new opportunities that we have created. Two, the government has spent quite a bit of money in the last couple of years investing in infrastructure. There's been quite a lot of cash transfers, some of which we can talk a bit about later on, because that we also see some of those numbers are going down, yet they are critical. And therefore, you realize that then you are not making a contribution that is going to be sustainable in the long run, because public sector cannot grow the economy in and of itself. But there are instances when public sector investment becomes very critical, particularly during a recession. Because during a recession, you need to inject money into the economy, and therefore it makes sense to have labor-intensive kind of programs. You remember 2008, 2009, when we had, I think, one of the biggest recessions in this country, and there was need to actually inject money in economy. That's the concern I wanted to raise as we have this conversation, that this formalization of jobs and the growth, and then there's also another point I think that also tells us that there is something to be concerned, because when you look at credit, access to credit to private sector is also declining. You know, access to how much credit was advanced to private sector, which then tells you private sector thrives. For private sector to grow the economy and to participate in the economy, it thrives on credit. So access to credit, both from microfinances and from banks, but when you compare that to the credit advanced to governments, you know, particularly for treasury bonds and, you know, basically government papers, it is not at par. You know, it's until recently when now the CBK started reducing the interest rate that now, so that's the point I wanted to make.
And then what happens, because the government also is the single largest consumer of domestic credit in the economy, and ideally commercial debt credit to the government was 32.4%, with the private households, trade, construction, and the real estate manufacturing taking 18.5%, 9%, 8.1%, and 7.9%.
Precisely. Let me just expound that a bit. What that means, it means that when I go to a bank, Daktari here is the government. I am the private sector corporation, and Guyo is a small trader, is a micro and small enterprise. He is offering 16% assured, because government will do that. I am offering, maybe I'm saying I can offer you about 18, 20%, I also have a corporation. I have a, I have an official address. Therefore, you can come for me. Almost assured. He is the informal trader we are talking about. Leo amefungua the full day, hajauza. Kesho ameamua, I don't need to sell books anymore. Let me sell umbrellas because now it's rain season. Maybe that's what will move. How does and then you are the creditor.
Yeah.
You're the bank. Who do you give money? You say this one is risky. I might even never be able to get back. This one is almost assured, but let me give government. That's exactly what it means. But government does not produce a good and a service that is going to be taxable. Yes, it is providing a service for a teacher. It is providing a service for, for a police officer, for a security officer, and the like. Yeah. But you see, those are not things that you can directly be able to get an income out of in terms of tax. Okay. When you now bring in even questions around corruption and how much wastage, now you cross-reference with the Office of the Auditor General and the ESCC reports, then you start now seeing where the challenge is. So it cannot be celebrated, that yes, credit is growing, but when credit is growing only to government, it's said that be wary when credit is growing only to government because of the factors I have explained. But more importantly, when banks are making huge profits, but they cannot necessarily account for what economic contribution they have made, but they are making because the credit is going to government and it's assured payback, as it were. Okay, and
Dr. Abudo, then give us a synopsis of how the mainstay of the economy, the agriculture sector, has performed.
I think before I go to the to your question very directly, I would wish to respond to what Bwanaguyu has mentioned, that the survey report is lacking the element of disaggregation. I think it will be really asking for too much at this level. Talking of disaggregation, because this is information that is compiled through the administrative information. In the process of doing your work, you generate data, and so we get this information from government ministry, departments, and agencies. We also get this information from the establishment, and when you look at the establishment, they are not broken down by the regions, and an establishment could be existing in Nyeri, but providing services beyond the borders. And so how to give proportions to what belongs to Murang'a, what belongs to Nyandarua becomes an issue. And so then we give this information at the national level. If you are to get what would go below that, either it is through a census process or and when I talk of census process, it's not just a population census. I'm talking of census of any other items within the area of interest, or we get it through survey. That's when it will be disaggregated. But as it is here, that is really not possible. And in fact, that there are only few areas where we are talking of births and deaths, which information is disaggregated at that level. We are all aware that disaggregated information is more useful than when it is global. But for this particular case and this report, really, this is how it is.
Okay.
So then I go to
agriculture.
The issue of agriculture. And agriculture, really, we are aware that agriculture is the mainstay of our economy, a fact that we can't run away from. Though it has also been going down a bit because other areas, in terms of its contribution to the GDP, but because the other areas are also coming up. But as it is today, it is accounting for 22.5% of our economy. And so anything affecting it would mean that we can do either very well or poorly. And so in the last year that we are reporting, there is a mixed reaction. You mentioned about production of maize going down. Yes, it went down from 47.6 million bags to 44.7 million bags. That is true. That is a decline of about 6%.
6.1%.
Yes, 6.1%. And so then There's a reason to it. Last year again, we had the maximum amount of rainfall as compared to the other years from 2020 to now, the 5-year period. Yeah. It was the highest, and that, I mean, by that you would have expected us to do better. Now we did not do so well because it was rain that was not supporting maize production. It was too much at the time when it came during the long rains, and we saw the destruction that came with it. Then you go to fresh horticultural produce. Again, we realized that it went deeper by about 14.1%, and so those are two key areas within, because this horticultural produce are majorly meant for export. Yeah. And so when the production goes down, then you also expect to attract very little from our export, and then that interferes with our trade deficit. Yeah. So those are two key areas that really went down. But when you talk of wheat, you talk of tea, you talk of coffee, they grew. Not to a great extent, but rice had a greater increase of 23.2%, something that, but then it matters to what extent, to what extent is it covering up for those that went down? In other words, what is it? Its weight when you go to the basket of agriculture. Yeah, so it grew, yes, but then that did not cushion us so much. So we take note that at the end of the day, then agricultural sector grew by 4.4%. Okay. So that growth, you see, it is now below the GDP growth of 4.7. So you see now the main driver of our economy slightly went down. And it is for the factors, for a main factor that was beyond the control of a human being. Yeah, yeah.
How much of it, I'll come to you on the fertilizer fiasco, and also for the case of horticulture. Is it a case of production down here, or a case of the changing trade landscape in the world, where tariffs have literally squeezed out the European markets, that way was the main destination largely for our horticulture? But Guyo, looking at the affordable housing, which was one of the projects that the government and the president touted, but the survey shows the jobs created were not in tandem with what the president and the Kenya Kwanza administration leaders have held. For example, it says that the construction sector declined by 0.7% in 2024 compared to 3.3% in 2023. Therefore, says that attributes this, that by the end of April, it had created, according to the government that is just looking for the specific where it cites the jobs that have been created, says the companies employed 223,400 persons, down from 226,000 in 2023, as the government employed 200 people more in the construction sector to reach 9,900, according to the economic survey. It seems that the political tone does not align with the economic reality, as the report shows.
Yeah, I think we are not meeting the revenue targets, so that we will have more money. And of course, we are also servicing very high debts, obviously. So we need to expand the tax bracket so that we will bring in more revenue for government to be able to inject more money into the economy. With regards to the housing, for me, I think how affordable is those housing? Who affords it? You know, how affordable is it? Because if I give you a good example of a private sector, Great Wall China, the estate which is in Mololongo, the house is 1 or 2 square feet. And obviously, you know, they purchase the land. They will also provide utilities like road, electricity, and do all the connectivity. but they're giving, they're selling the houses for less than 4 million, okay, 3.3. When it comes to the affordable housing by the government, the counties are providing lands for free. And also the government gives incentives to the investors in terms of zero rating some of these materials. But again, they are as costly or even more than what the private sector provides. Mm-hmm. You see the dichotomy there. For me, it has to be affordable because Kenyans are like saying, yes, we are paying tax. Why can't the government construct these houses? Because it's the Kenyan people who actually, it's their money. And the government could just give it at a very affordable prices or even give it out for free. So that is also something which the government needs to look into it. If you are, for example, buying that particular house for you to be able to invest, how attractive is it to you so that you'll be able to recoup your investment by purchasing some of those affordable housings? So for me, the affordable housing in itself is quite expensive, even when compared to the houses constructed by the private sector investors. Okay.
Daktari, what does a decline in maize production by 6.1% means? That's more than, give or take, 2+ million production, decline in production in terms of bags of maize, and the fertilizer fiasco that we had during the reign of CS Mithika Linturi.
So first of all, I think I want to comment on that and also say something on housing. It's a bit of a surprise because for a country like Kenya, there's been every goal, every aspiration that production of a staple food like maize can no longer just depend on rain and weather conditions, and that's why there's been quite an investment, in the irrigation schemes, the Galana Kulalu and many other, different schemes. So for me, that's but it's also strange because the fertilizer and the former cabinet secretary was trying to explain his life yesterday in a sister station. And first of all, I'm not convinced that the intention initially, the intention initially was just to spur a production of maize. It seems to have been other interests, other economic interests, private especially, because that's where the scandals come in. Of fertilizers at one point, part of it was donated, part of it, there was also the concern about, that African Censored, expounded on that some of the fertilizer was actually not fertilizer at all. It was, I don't even know what to call it, fake. It has no even semblance of fertilizer. My point is that I don't think in 2024 and 2025, to be precise, we can continue to excuse, because when you look at the countries where sometimes we have bought maize and beans and all this from Uganda, Malawi, Zambia, and the other countries, the climatic conditions are almost the same, and they have not had a shortage of food as it were. So yes, I understand, yes, there was a rain fluctuation and the like, but also the factors of production are also as high. I think there are other factors, the factors of production, and there are people. I think there have been reports, even including on your station, of people who are moving away from production of maize, and they are moving to something else. Some are deciding perhaps, to go into real estate and the like, and they are no longer, because they are saying, first of all, when you produce, the possibility of your maize being bought at the right price, at the point when it needs to be bought, has not been fixed. The NCPB and all the challenges that are around that. That could actually explain, part of this decline. That it's not just we planted, then the rains messed it up, but also that there are fewer farmers, who are willing to do this kind of production. But let me come to housing, if you may. It's okay. Yes. First of all, I think when you look at the whole construction industry, and I want us to go beyond just the affordable housing, because affordable housing, I still don't think it was necessary, particularly in rural areas, because in rural areas, about 80%, according again to the KNBS statistics, of the people there live in their own homes. think about where you come from in your villages. People live, they may have other things they need, like connectivity to clean water, electricity, but they live in their own homes. In the cities, it is about 20%. But the problem in the cities is not an ownership problem. It's an affordability problem. So that in this city of Nairobi, I think the last report I saw, it's a couple million surplus already of residential space. So it's not an issue of that there is no construction, that has been done, is that people cannot afford. And I allowed the effort right now, through the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company, as it were. But secondly, is to say that there is actually no private activity commensurate happening within the housing sector, because even the consumption of cement, which is a key driver of construction. So assuming it was all mechanized. Yeah. So you can say that, employment went down because the construction is mechanized. That is possible. But cement has declined. By 7.2%. Yes, which means cement is a key input, in the construction industry. It actually means that sector in itself has actually contracted. There are no more houses being built, and therefore the problem perhaps could not be, and as Guya has said, there's no way you can build with subsidy from government and still charge the same cost as private sector.
So what's then the net effect here? Dr. is still on you, before I come to Dr. Obudho, because that then takes the 7.2% decline to 8.537 million tons of cement in 2024. Also talks about the increase in prices of construction materials, which rose by 2.83% in general, as compared to 2.3% in 2023, among the contributors to a drop in construction sector jobs. Yes, the jobs have been affected. Certainly the report, it differs with what the president has been saying. Even on Labor Day, the president held that the program had created 250,000 jobs spanning architecture, engineering, urban planning, carpentry, plumbing, and electoral works. But ideally, then that's different. The second is the consumption. Is this, in effect, also affecting the other parties in the private sector, other than the government?
I think it is, first of all, a sector like this that is should be a priority sector for a country that is the population is expanding. And I don't know what is the estimate right now, but I suspect our population is around 56-57 million, give and take, thereabout. For a sector that is as central as this, you would expect a very high uptake, which then simply means that, you see, the construction industry is an industry that is dependent on other factors. It is dependent on your ability to afford a mortgage and therefore to buy, and for the developer to be able to make their money. It's dependent on inputs. Now, everything around the inputs is going up, which simply means that sector in itself is no longer competitive as it should be. The costs of doing business in that sector is quite high. Secondly, it also means that the uptake of this product that is coming from construction is not as good, and it's basically for what I have just explained. On one hand, you have people who own their own homes. They live in their own homes. So they're not looking for another house, as it were. So they're not looking for a house to purchase. On the other hand, you have people who would like to have better place to live, but they cannot afford, which then becomes a mortgage problem, a credit problem, as opposed to, lack of availability. As I've said, that then has a ripple effect even on your taxation, because then it means that then the sector like this that you are trying to, and I think it's, let's just be honest, the numbers within this report and the numbers, indicated elsewhere do not match, in terms of, because I would dare ask, which jobs? Yet you can see already there is actually a contraction in terms of growth. And
also commercial banks cutting lending to construction sector by from 602 billion in 2023 to 528 billion.
You remember the example I gave? The cost of credit is a key input to private sector growth. Two, the regulatory environment, taxation especially, is a key driver to whether people spend their money or they hold back and wait.
Dr. Obudho.
Yes. Now, let me just first make some statement based on what my friend here has mentioned, Dr. Rugo. The population of this country has not gotten to 56-57 million. for the report that we are making reference to in 2024, at the time, the population was about 52.4 million. Then this year, it is projected to be 53.3 million. And so that's where we are on that. Okay. When it comes to the construction sector, yes, there was a decline, and we are all aware that in the Finance Act of 2023, there was the introduction of
housing levy,
levy on the clinker, the cement clinker. This is the main raw material for doing cement. And so the interest was that by putting a levy of 17.5 on clinker, much of it was coming from outside, yeah. And any country would really want to reduce on what is coming from outside in terms of imports, and increase what is going outside in terms of export. So in our case, this was levied on clinker, and so then it means that we had to deal more with the local production, and that had to push up a bit the cost of cement. That would also explain as to why it was not utilized so much. In terms of the construction of affordable housing, yes, we have noted that there's a decline, but the decline is not really explained by the fact that there are no constructions that are going on. They are going on. The thing is that we are talking of what was completed within the period.
Okay.
So that should also be very clear that much as what we established to have been completed was small, it is because the others are in progress. So let's see, we keep that one somewhere. Come next year, we get to see what shall have been completed by then. You would expect to have a large number. Otherwise, we are restricting ourselves to within the 1 year of reporting. And so then I think that should be able to explain it. When it comes to the cost of credit, really it is true that the interest rates were high, and CBK reduced the CBR from 13% to 11.25%, and asked the government to, the commercial banks to reduce their interest rates. But this took quite a bit of time. They still stood at 16.89%. Again, that was now high, and it means that even the private sector could not be able to get reasonable loans for their work. And so that's another factor that we need to consider, that lending rates were high from the side of the banks, despite the fact that CBR rates had been reduced.
All right, and Guyo, then from a governance perspective, the jobs we talked about and the agriculture sector, which is the mainstay, largely then how do we sustain, coming to the question now to you on public debt transactions, which remain the largest expenditure item for the government in 2024, estimated to gobble up more than or plus 1 trillion Kenya shillings. Is sustainability therefore going to be, is there a consistency around sustainability, given the debt that we pay, the jobs that we are unable to construct, the shrinking of the formal job creation space, and how largely is the navigation going to be around this?
I want to credit the government. I think there is a tighter monetary and fiscal policies that enable the government to roll over about $2 billion US dollars. We are able to do the servicing of the Eurobond. In terms of public debt sustainability and the fiscal risk and efficiency of the government expenditure, I think that is what is going to, we have to be very transparent in terms of our fiscal transparency. The government, should make it very clear that, in terms of how much is going into debt servicing, because there is a lot. When you compare the revenue that the government gets in, a lot of that money again went into servicing the debt. Okay? So there is less available for now, capital development to inject into the economy. So the government must put all efforts to ensure that we grow our economy. I think, as you said, agriculture is the mainstay. We must look ways of how we can inject more money into the agricultural sector. We need to also invest a lot in infrastructural development. I'm happy what's going on in the northern part of the country. We now have, of course, the LAPSSET, the way it has also opened up northern Kenya, particularly Isiolo and Marsabit, all the way to Ethiopia, which will make us access Ethiopian market, which is about 115 million. So if we are able to complete this, the road from Isiolo all the way to Mandera, which connect us to the Somali market. Okay. I think that is also a plus for the economy. Other investment that we need to look at is the digital economy. I think we are not putting more money in the digital economy. Earlier on, there's a lot of promises in terms of growing our ICT hubs in the Koza city, and the government is even more hopeful that Kenya is quite advanced in the IT sector, that we're able even to develop some software developed by Kenyans that we're able to export to other countries. More importantly, we have to live within our budget, and we have to tighten controls and make sure that we spend money efficiently and effectively. And
how then do we achieve that? Because this report can, and the survey can inform sound economic policy. For instance, there was the claim that the collapse of the 2024 finance bill derailed the government's agenda. Nonetheless, what's emerging from this indicator is that the problem is not of revenue, but spending and wastefulness and extravagance.
Yes.
Overall, the administration had at its reach a total of 3.1 trillion Kenya shillings in revenues. These are quick fixes that can be done economically, but they're not being done.
Yeah, the June protest 2024, of course, it scared away the investors, obviously, as local as well as the foreign. So if you look at the amount of money that we lost, in the economy, 60 billion for every day that the protest is going on. For me, I think what is important is to make sure that we increase the tax brackets. There are people who are actually evading tax. These are not individuals, like people in informal sector. It's always easy to catch up with them through pay as you earn and follow them up. But there are big economies in this country, businesses that do not pay tax, do not declare their income. And I think the government really need to follow up, even though there is issue of the privacy of the data and, Safaricom supplying the data of individuals and the companies. There is a question around that, But then again, it is important that the tax reforms, increasing the tax bracket and taxing these people who are actually evading the taxes. So we'll be able to bring in a lot of money and inject it into the economy.
Yeah. Dr. Rugo, coming to you, Guyo mentioned earlier on about FDIs, foreign direct investments, and manufacturing. How do we achieve, for example, manufacturing alone when our taxation regime is inconsistent? The American ambassador, former Meg Whitman, mentioned here that inconsistencies in taxation affects manufacturing, the cost of production, energy included, and arresting the capital flight out of the market to destinations that are safe havens, for example, in Ethiopia and Rwanda, upcoming economies that Kenya can't ignore.
Yeah, I mean, rightly so. Our regulatory environment can be better. I think one of the things you see an effort with the current finance bill tabled for 2025, all other factors held constant, is to try and streamline quite a number of things. Of how, for instance, you give, you approve tax expenditures, how you process VAT refunds and the like. But for me, it's pretty straightforward. Government cannot be on the driver's seat for building a lot of these sectors. It has to be a facilitator. because the efficiencies within the private sector cannot be compared. Look at all the countries that we are talking about that have developed. You know, government facilitates private sector to play a critical role. So government cannot be the main, you know, the main competitor in the credit market. Government cannot be the one purporting to be creating more employment and the like. I think the focus has to be changed completely. Two, there has to be a rationalization of what government is to, because that then rolls to what government should be spending its money on. And government money, in my opinion, has to be to ensure that, first of all, cost of energy comes down. The cost of doing business, energy is a big piece of it that has pushed quite a number of people to fly. But then there needs to change the perspective that that agriculture is the mainstay of our economy. I think it's something we need to start completely moving away from. And this is my argument.
Okay.
You see, the sectors that would create mass employment that is gainful, we are clear it's not agriculture. Because even in the report, even the small-scale agriculture players had to be excluded, you know, from the employment numbers. Because really, it's people planting just for their own subsistence. The focus is on manufacturing, which, as we see, is actually stagnating and in some places actually declining for the very reasons that you're saying. So the shift has to be actually towards manufacturing, towards value addition. In horticulture, one of the big challenges we have with horticulture is that the number of products that are being declined, either because of standards or quality, again in the report, is actually going up. It's very concerning that the flowers we are producing cannot go out because they are not of standard. The vegetables we are producing that are supposed to be for the export market, they don't meet the international. You had asked earlier about whether it's tariffs or what. Yeah. There's also a standard question, you know, and the report does show that the number of, you know, the name is running away, but basically the number of declines of what needs to go out because it did not meet the standard is concerning. Then taxation. Taxation cannot be about government revenue only. Taxation must be a facilitator of economic capacity. What do I mean by taxation? Taxation is a balance of what rebates you give. Okay. There's been a concern about how special economic zones are awarded, who gets them, you know, whether it is, you know, sound business or political connections and the like. That has to be balanced there. You have to ask yourself, you know, how do you tax income tax, especially for startups, both at corporate and individual level, so that then you have a place where you can facilitate, you know, an engagement in the economy. But bottom line, you have to deal with corruption. Okay. The number of investors who have complained of being extorted, because they don't have a better word, you know, literally they want to put up a project, they want, even in the construction industry, yeah. You've heard the stories, yes. You know, where I want to put up a building, but then just the approval process within any county, you know, and then the National Construction Authority and the county approvals just means that it's actually a money peddling process. You know, you have to part with so much. By the time you get that approval, you no longer even have appetite for the project. Yes. Because our competitors, I still struggle how our competitors, Rwanda, could be growing. Actually, you know, by the way, when you look at even economic growth, Tanzania and Rwanda are growing faster. Even Burundi is growing faster than Kenya. You know, yet we have the hub connectivity, we have, so unless we deal with corruption, because and theft of public resources and extortion for business and the like, so that then we say that the best way to, the way to go forward is actually to make sure that we are facilitating business. So for me, deal with credit questions. Okay. Credit has to be affordable. Yes. 2, deal with corruption. There's no way any investor will come here and be extorted. But 3, deal with the regulatory environment.
And before I sample the feedback, Dr. Obudho, coming to you, also, what's the sense around this? Because manufacturing represents a key component which translates to human capital. Could it, even from a professional perspective, then open up the floodgates for labor export out of the country, the best that we have educated and trained?
Maybe when you look at the brains that have gone out, you can also see that there is remittance inflows that has grown and grown big. Over 6 billion that is coming from there, from outside, and majorly from US. Then we have Saudi Arabia. Those are guys who have gone to work in Saudi Arabia, UK, even to the extent of Australia. So we have, even for those who are outside, there is what they are bringing back to the country. But the main thing here is that manufacturing has been kind of stagnating somewhere. Because in terms of its contribution to the GDP, it is always 7 point something, 7.7, 7.6. Now it is 7.3. As Dr. Rugo puts it, really it is a sector that should grow, because our aspiration is to be an industrialized country. This will be possible if it is properly supported by the manufacturing sector, industrialization growth. I remember I was listening to Dr. David Ndii when he had a show on X, that is about either on Wednesday or Thursday night, and he said that it is not about coming up with big industries which will demand for high competition. We need to have a relatively low-level industries that will be able to support our economy by giving us what we can even consume locally. Something that I agree with, and we need. It is a sector that for sure needs to grow. If you are to move away, start drifting away from over dependence on agriculture, which is rain-fed, and so I'm in agreement that we need to do something better when it comes to manufacturing. But it's also one other thing to note that when you talk of manufacturing industry, it has to. It is something that requires that you are moving, or you are changing the state of one item into something else. When you talk, and so then it requires some processing, and that means we are now focusing on coming up with industries that will be able to do that. Before they start, before an industry starts producing anything, it is not, you not be able to get what to quantify under it as a manufactured product. So value addition is not realized until it is fully operational. And so we need to go that direction. The government is also spending on that, just to make sure that we diversify our sources of revenue, and that will bring about the element of employment.
Okay. Let's sample the feedback here on the broadcast. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. The first one, Gabi Wakasiaka, says the government sells the lie of a stable economy, but reality is brutal, shrinking purchasing power, collapsing businesses, job losses, and no credit access. Overtaxation and reckless borrowing are choking growth. This is sabotage, not progress. Sam Masik_ says the Kenyan economy shines on camera, sounds great on the mic, and reads well in books, yet it barely touches the lives of the ordinary citizens. The government of Kenya, GOK, must craft smart policies and foster a conducive environment for work and enterprise. Engineer Lazaro says the past regime spent a lot on infrastructure development, neglecting other key sectors which were left to suffer in oblivion. The current regime seems to stuck in the mud, still searching for the best approach to improve the economy. Godi Barasawere says Kenya is a unique country among the League of Nations. The president has a brilliant economic recovery blueprint on paper, but in practice he continues to engage in activities that drain public resources while further hurting the very economy he aims to revive. Bob Otieno Wino says growth of the economy won't be felt by the common mwananchi when there is a lack of employment, cost of living and basic commodities is too high, and rampant runaway corruption. Some, again, the final one says, let the government step back from job creation and focus on making things work for investors. Yes, Guyo, your final word here and comment on the broadcast.
Thank you, Ayub. I think we need to ensure that there's guaranteed minimum returns for farmers. And that's the issue that Dr. Rogo was talking about, that even the maize farmers, they have stopped growing maize and because it's not paying. So there must be a guaranteed minimum returns for the farmers, as Kenya Kwanza promised in their manifesto.
Okay.
The inputs has to be affordable, okay, including the fertilizer. They have to be affordable. We are talking about, you cannot make it even free, but you can make it affordable. Investment in the digital infrastructure, and focus on also the manufacturing, and also adding value to our agriculture, because we are still exporting, raw commodities. Why don't we add value to our tea, to our coffee, and even to our fruits like avocado and other fruits as well.
Okay.
So I think we need to add value, because when you go into the supermarket,
okay,
we're still consuming a lot of these juices, that even for mangoes, and yet we have a lot of mangoes being grown by farmers in Ukambani. So
yes,
that's the key areas that we need to look at.
Yes, Dr. Rogo, briefly.
Thank you. I think for me, moving from here, the focus can only be one. There must be an effort for creation of gainful employment through private sector mechanisms, because that's where the sustainability of everything is. So gainful incomes. And I think it is time for us to stop celebrating that we are creating jobs in the informal sector.
Okay.
Because nobody creates jobs in the informal sector. People walk into the informal sectors to try and make ends meet. So there's no jobs we are creating. People just walk in to try and make life, to try and make ends meet. So it's not something to celebrate nationally at all. It's actually something to be ashamed of, because these are people who cannot even be able. Thirdly, productivity. Looking through our economy, a lot of the sectors are not producing optimally, because either the inputs are too expensive, or the regulatory environment that I talked about is too, people are spending a lot of time trying to manage to survive the business, corruption notwithstanding and the like, being chased by regulators, left, right, center, and there's no time. So productivity for me has to be a key focus. And lastly, I think it's important for us to remember that this country, and with the numbers that have been corrected on, thank you, Dr. for that, we are talking of 22 million Kenyans are below the poverty line. 39.8%, if you multiply by 52, gives you about 22 million, which basically means that we're in a crisis, and a big crisis.
Okay.
And therefore, because of that, in a state like that, you cannot sacrifice spending in the social sectors. And therefore, you have to increase efficiency in how you spend in healthcare. You have to increase efficiency with cash transfers. Cash transfers are not just a political gimmick, they are a survival line for many, many, many homes. And then finally, you have to, so I've talked about healthcare, you have to talk about agriculture, education, but lastly, food security.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Abud.
For me, those are things.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Abdikadir, for the chance again. Mine is to say that the government of Kenya, through Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, has given the economic performance position, and Kenyans should not just look at it as such. It is such an elaborate document that provides insight of every sector of our economy, and we need to utilize that information to make a difference. Let's not read it as a novel, as a storybook, but it is meant to bring out key issues, areas that we can now focus on. What are the weaknesses that are noted in different sectors? Which ones are promising that can grow? And so when we are directing our investment, it should be in line with what is noted through facts. In fact, in the report, you'll not be able to see where we are saying we think. we are using data to explain data.
Okay.
And so that becomes very important because we are talking of facts. And so then Kenyans should really understand this. And we have a 5-year period of series that we are giving. That makes it easier for you to see the trend on what is happening and how it is happening like that. And so let's make good use of it to make a difference.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Dr. Obudo, thanks for your time. Dr. Rugo, thanks for your time. Guyo, thanks for your time. Much appreciated. And thanks to you too for waking up with us here on the broadcast and your feedback here in sampled, of course, few minutes ago regarding the topic at hand. And always a pleasure having you and your company here on Daybreak. Many thanks for watching and good morning.